Hello, my name is Hat, and welcome to a AHNC mini video. This one regarding a YouTuber known as Lady Columbia. A couple of days ago, she produced a video about the Oakland Women's March, and while I found most of it interesting and somewhat agreeable, she had a couple points that disquieted me. So I decided to make a response in the comment section. We had a brief conversation, the results of which I'm going to publish at the end of the video. With that said, let's get to it.
I look across the raging war and feel the steady beating of my heart. 嵐の前の静けさに刃を振り下ろしてく
I should have guessed from her title sequence that this wasn't going to be a person who I saw eye to eye with politically. At first I thought these were clips of a riot that happened after the Oakland March, but it turns out this is her title sequence. So obviously this gal's got some attitude that goes beyond women's issues.
Hello everyone, it's your girl Columbia. How are you? I'm fine. Let's get into it. So, I went to the Women's March in Oakland, California. That was Saturday, January 21st, 2017, because God knows when you're watching this video. And these are just some thoughts I had. I thought it was amazing, just like the amount of people that were there. I think they clocked in at anywhere between like 50 to 60,000 people. It was just a really diverse showing, you know, every elderly people, young people, teenagers, middle-aged people, African Americans, white people, Native Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, just people from all over the Bay Area and what felt like the world.
Let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, she shoots in portrait. We talked about that briefly in the comments section. More on that later. One thing I found telling in the opening here is her listing of all the ethnicities that had shown up. It seemed very intersectional to me, but then again, it could just be detailed reporting, so I gave it a pass.
Probably not the world, though. It was really amazing just to see all of those people conglomerated together for what were effectively many causes. I mean, it wasn't just we don't support Trump. There were plenty of people who were there because they support particular immigration policies or because they were feminists or what have you. So there were many causes conglomerating together, but it was such a beautiful thing and so hopeful to see all of these people come together and really support something to demonstrate, you know, their displeasure with what's going on with the person who's the president and with the policies that that person and their party are going to impose.
I'm not exactly sure what she's trying to say in this bit, because she talks about people who are there not only to show they don't support Trump's policies, but also to show they support women's policies and immigration policies, things that are obviously different from Trump's policies according to the left during the election cycle. And have you noticed that odd audio artifact that's coming through on her recording? I'm not sure if it's overmodulation or what, but if you've got headphones on, I imagine it's a bit disconcerting.
My biggest takeaway was that if we're going to survive Trump's presidency with something intact, that political energy that I saw at the protest has to be translated into lobbying efforts, I should say. I want to encourage everyone to, you know, be willing to go to the city council and tell them, hey, I don't agree with Trump, I don't support Trump's agenda, and I only support politicians who are resisting his agenda. And if you don't resist his agenda, then I'm going to make sure you're going to get voted out at the end of your term. I don't care if that coincides with the end of Trump's term. I don't care if that means that, you know, Trump's been gone for 3 years and that's the only point I can get you out. I'm going to get you out.
I had a long talk with my family over the weekend about the march, and my sister and I came to the same conclusion, even though we're on opposite sides of the political spectrum. She believes, and I believe, that, like Lady of Columbia just said, take the energy, take the solidarity that you got during this march and put it to use. However, I'm not hearing anything about changing the politics. I'm not hearing anything about getting a grip on how identity politics screwed you over and changing your tactics. Obviously, if the left doesn't do that, they are doomed to repeat the failure they've just succumbed to and will continue to succumb to. I'm skipping over this next clip as it's a little rambly, but it makes good points. She's directing people to be active at all levels of government, not just state government, not just local government, county government, federal government. She wants people out there. That's very laudable, and I completely agree with that. If you want change, you got to be the change. She also talks about raising money for causes like Planned Parenthood. Again, I agree. If you want that kind of thing to happen, got to get out there and do it. Good for her. Now we get to the meat of why I'm making this video.
And two, link up with people. Link up with your local March for Women organization. Link up with the Socialist Party. Link up with the fucking anarchist parties. Link up with the Democratic Party. Us being together and having a cohesive agenda is going to help in terms of resistance.
There you have it. Not just the Democratic Party, but the Socialist Party. Bernie brought socialism to the table, and he did pretty well, especially when you look at what the DNC was doing to him the entire time. But the anarchists? Seriously. Up till now, this video has been talking about the democratic process, at least the way I read it. But I guess it's more than that. It's a little insane. How are the anarchists going to bring anything to the table? I'm getting ahead of myself. This is in my comments. Let's finish this up.
But I think that the Women's March was a great first step. I think it's a great platform just because it proved that there is a palpable, large constituency of people who do not support Donald Trump. In fact, more people don't support him than came out to Washington to support him. So that's the case. I think that we're going to be okay, but we have to fight. And we, in terms of the left in general, that's liberal, that's, center left all the way to the radical left. I think that the more moderate elements of the left have kind of rested on their laurels for the last few years. And now it's time for us to remember how to fight and how to resist and how to be the minority party. Yeah. I hope you guys have a great time. Remember, people can make a difference. You can make a difference. We all can. Together. And this fucking orange Cheeto Hitler he's not the end all and be all. Remember that Congress still exists and Congress still has decisions to make. My stomach. Okay, so that's my guns and I'm sticking to it, guys. Alright, hope you have a good one. Bye.
She was doing so well. She'd avoided calling Trump a rapist, a sexist, a homophobe, a transphobe, a xenophobe, anti-Muslim, and then she had to go with the Hitler bit. That's not going to help your cause, my dear. You can't compare Trump to Hitler and hope to get anywhere. And by the way, isn't orange Cheeto redundant? Are there other Cheetos? I'm just wondering. So that's the video. I watched it, and again, I agreed with it for a while, and then the bit about the anarchists came in. And in the comment section, it got better. So let's cut to that. So the train started with my first comment. I thought your message was going nicely until I heard, hook up with the anarchists. You want to be associated with those hateful, violent criminals? Do you expect the people you need to win over to be positively swayed by that? Rethink that one if you want to have any real influence on swing voters. Not all anarchist parties are violent criminal organizations. Some individual anarchists may be criminals or participate in criminal activity, but I've not known any personally. So that makes it better. I don't know why. I am trying to connect with different people who have different ideological aims than I do. Anarchy, socialism, communism are having an influence on voters as we live in a time when these ideologies are accessible than they ever have been. I am not trying to win anyone over to my way of thinking. I'm more trying to let people know what I think we can do to resist a president, Congress, political party that we vehemently disagree with and what I plan to do. I will keep your advice in mind. A bit of advice to you. It's not a documentary, my dear. Cut Mama a bit of slack, eh? Okay, last thing first. I don't know why it has to be a documentary to be filmed in landscape. That's the standard. If you want to fill your frame with cutouts, okay, I guess that's your right, but it just doesn't look good. And now to the comment. She mentions how anarchy, socialism, and communism are having an influence on voters more than they ever have been. That's not a good thing, at least not in the case of anarchy and communism. I mentioned socialism before. How can anarchy and communism have any good effect on a cause that you're trying to shepherd along? It's good to be open, but it's not good to be open to every idea when some of them have been proven to be detrimental and close to seditious on occasion. I don't see how she can reconcile their well-known characteristics with having a chance of helping her cause. This brings us to my second comment. Thanks for your reply, though now I'm more confused. I took your video as saying you are going to do all you can to use local activism to let your elected officials know you won't stand for any support of Trump policies, going so far as to put them on notice they would lose all support, especially financially, for doing so. This is, as I see it, the core of the political process we call democracy. That said, how is it possible to bring anarchy and communism's ideologies into the mix? I'll give you socialism. Bernie showed us how that can be brought to bear. These two ideologies are an anathema to the concept of democracy, both seeking to tear it down rather than make it more robust. I understand wanting to use all of the tools available to bring about the change you want to see, but why incorporate these outliers? From where I'm sitting, they don't have even a fraction of enough actual influence in America to begin to offer you any greater chance in effecting change, at least not any change that would be healthy to our current political system. Lady Columbia's response: let me attempt to clarify. I believe that these outliers have a place in terms of helping the moderate left to defeat Donald Trump and the Republican agenda. While I acknowledge the following, that Marxism in particular, some forms of anarchism and communism, are critiques of, hostile to liberalism. Some adherents to these ideologies may also be hostile to democracy. That these are a smaller percentage of the voting population than, let's say, independents or Democrats. I also want to acknowledge that some of my audience may not be liberals or center-left folk, and they are welcome in my tent if they are open to participating in the system via traditional democratic means. Then we can quibble about ideology later. I declined to respond to this as I really didn't see where I could go. She acknowledges my point that anarchism and communism are hostile to liberalism, and that people belonging to those ideologies, quote, may also be hostile to democracy. So how can you say that and then say, if they are open to participating in the system via traditional democratic means, then we can quibble about ideology later? I don't think she understands that ideology is what you bring to the table. How can you bring in an anarchist or a communist and have them say, oh, well, I don't care about my ideology, I'll help with democracy? That makes no sense. You can't have it both ways. So she acknowledges that some of her audience may not be liberals or center-left folk, and they are welcome in her tent. They may be welcome in your tent, but I don't see how many liberals, or especially center-left folk, are going to be open to it. Look at what the anarchists did in Washington. Look at what Antifa has done all over the place during the election. These are not people you want to be with. Not unless you want to be completely discounted by the political establishment you're trying to make a change with. They are going to see you as too far to the left. They're going to see you as too radical to want to deal with. They're not going to want to be associated with you in any way, thereby discounting your ideas and leaving you out of, quote unquote, their tent. Going down this path is a path to ruin. I just don't think she's going to be able to see that.